The time grows late with Dazzle.
Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl seek out the Sorcerer through Merlin's magic mirror.
The Sorcerer's really outdone himself this time, Dyna Girl. I just hope we're not too late to save the crown jewels.
The return of the Sorcerer brings some fascinating illusions for our superheroines.
It's just an illusion.
Worried? I'm enjoying myself immensely.
The seventh dimension gives Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl some real trouble. Stay tuned.
Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl, fighting all evil deeds. Each writes for a magazine, hiding the life she leads. Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl. Summon to Electra-Base by Electra, come they wear. Laurie and Judy dare to face any criminal anywhere. Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl.
Welcome back, my friends, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your Crime Scope here, John S. Drew. And when I say Crime Scope, that means we're talking Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl. And since we're talking Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl, I had to bring in our own Frank himself from the Flopcast, Mr. Kevin Eldridge. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, John. Once again, I shall try to be as grumpy and miserable as our hero, Frank Heflin.
As Frank. You know, I think Frank might have smiled more if he had like a little dog or something there to keep him company while Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl were off adventuring.
He was a very lonely man. He lived in a basement and was just watching these two beautiful young women on a monitor all day.
Mm-hmm. But who knows? Maybe he gave men who lived in their basement hope, saying, at least I get to work with beautiful women.
Look, there's two girls that talk to this guy. Maybe there's hope for us all.
Exactly. Meanwhile, he had his little side gig where he was sending in, using CrimeScope to record his audio, his lines for Aquaman.
That's right. He's also Aquaman on the Super Friends.
Yes. Oh, man. So today we're going to be looking at an old villain. I mean, it's interesting. This is what, the 5th episode in out of the 8, and we're already going back to villains that we've established on the show with the Sorcerer.
We're in the back half of the complete run of the series at this point. We've crossed the halfway point officially as we roll into episode 5.
Yep. This episode is entitled Return of the Sorcerer, appropriately enough. It aired November 6th and 13th of 1976. Written once again by Dick Robbins and Dwayne Poole, who wrote the last episode. Directed also once again by Walter C. Miller, who, as we've noted before, directed most of the episodes of this series. Now, I didn't say this in the last episode, but you may have noticed that there was some new audio clips in this in the show itself, including coming attractions for upcoming episodes. I managed to acquire a DVD of the series, a Blu-ray of this, from a private collector, I guess you could call him there. I don't want to get into too much of it, but this is not a show that's readily available for sale on the market. And so I cards on the table, I did purchase this from a private dealer and such. But the picture quality is amazing. Yes.
John, the FBI is tracing this call.
Maybe I should
hear the helicopters.
Maybe I shouldn't say this part. You think I should leave it out?
I did see your picture last time I was at the post office. On the wall.
Public enemy number 1. Oh man, but it's amazing. Like when you watch this, and it's much clearer how, I don't know, suddenly it becomes even more alive for you. And yet I think about like in the 70s, and we watched these on our little color TVs, and maybe in some cases our black and white TVs, and the picture quality wasn't that great because we were doing antennas. And yet we're so obsessed with, pristine quality of our old TV shows these days. Like Batman 66, the way it's cleaned up. It's beautiful, but that's not the way I remember watching it growing up, technically.
Oh, yeah. Some of these older shows, when they go in and restore them, you're seeing a much better, clearer version of these shows than the people saw them originally on TV. You could not see things that clearly back then. It was impossible.
Yeah. Yep. So let's get into the story here itself. First and foremost, I've got to ask, why are you putting rare artifacts in a building called the Municipal Records Building?
Doesn't that sound like the perfect place for a King Arthur exhibit?
The King Arthur, but that's the thing. The King Arthur exhibit is one, and not only that, they're exhibiting them. They're showing them off to the public, including Merlin's mirror. I don't get that. It's not a museum. Why the Municipal Records Building? That makes, other than if you did a museum, I guess maybe you'd have to do up the set a little better so you could make it look as cheap as possible. Because if you've ever been in a Municipal Records Building, it's pretty, vanilla.
Drab, plain set. So let's just call it something with a very drab, plain name, and so it'll be accurate that way.
Right. Now, the Sorcerer appears along with Miss Dazzle. She's back as well, which I did like that as well, because a lot of times when you had Batman, moles who were along with the villain, they were never the same with each episode. This is a nice touch at bringing her back.
Yeah, they're being true to the continuity of the series, and we have reunited the original cast from the original Sorcerer episode. And we did a quick discussion of these two actors when we did the first Sorcerer episode. So just real quick, I dashed down some notes that the Sorcerer was played by Michael Constantine, who last time I checked was still alive, still around, which is nice. And I think one of his better known roles was in the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And the other interesting credit on him is that he played the principal on Room 222. And that show also featured Dyna girl herself, Judy Strangis.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that.
They have that credit in common. Miss Dazzle, who I just adore, she's so funny. And she's played by Susan Lanier, who is still alive also and still working. She also has a credit in common with one of our heroes because she worked on Days of Our Lives, where, of course, Deirdre Hall has been working for about the last 700 years or so. So there's a credit that they share. And the other fun credit on Susan is that she played Chrissy in the original pilot episode of Three's Company before Suzanne Summers got the role.
Yeah. She's given not much to do, but when she's on screen, she kind of steals the scene.
Yeah, she's fun. She's funny. She's got the kind of ditzy voice going. And she, plays to the camera. She, at times, looks right at the camera.
Yes.
To deliver her line.
Yes. So she and the Sorcerer appear at the King Arthur exhibit, and he moves over to Merlin's mirror, and with a sweep of his cloak and a puff of smoke, they disappear. Yeah. I had to ask because at first, and then I realized because I'm thinking to myself, he got into the museum or the Municipal Records Building. He got up to the mirror, is able to disappear with it. Why does he need the mirror in order to steal? But then I find out there's an extra element to the mirror. It's not just a simple matter of passing through it and showing up, anywhere around the world, which he could probably do with his magic. It's because it's a time device as well. He can go back and forth in time.
There's a lot going on with this mirror.
Yes. But it takes a while for us to learn that, though. It takes a while for us to learn that.
Yep. Yeah, at first it just looks like they're teleporting. I say just teleporting. That would still be very impressive. But also, it also looks like you could have just picked up anything you wanted and just walked out of the building.
Right.
Nothing seemed to be terribly well secured at the municipal center.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This episode, I like it, but there's a lot of things that, like, it takes later on in the episode before we learn why certain things are important. Like I say, the mirror. Then we get the next scene where Laurie is showing Judy this, and we only know it's an expensive clock, and Laurie's like, we got to return it. Okay, you even say it like we should not be possessing this, and it's like, how did you get it? Why do you have it? Why are you so concerned about bringing it back now? And then suddenly, of course, it disappears.
Yeah, John, I'm looking at my notes right now. It says, "Why do they have it?"
Yeah.
So I guess it must have been sent to them to write a story about it. There must have been something for their job, I would assume, with the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they literally say this big gold clock is worth millions, and they have it at their house.
Yeah.
They're sitting in their house. They're upstairs from the Electra-Base, and yeah, Laurie is like, we're gonna have to send this back right away.
Right.
But it does seem like we're missing some information, like another line or two to put that big clock in context might have been nice, because it is a little weird.
Right. I mean, we're going to learn eventually it is a valuable clock. It's the Bernini clock, but it's the Sorcerer who has to tell us that part.
Right.
And when it does disappear from view, they rush off to tell Frank, but we see Frank's right on top of it because Crime Scope has detected the disturbance in the space-time continuum.
Get a little extra scene with the elevator, though.
Yes.
Because instead of just popping out at the bottom, you see them say activate Electra change.
Yes.
You see them in the elevator in their regular civilian clothes before they step out, of course, in full costume.
Right. Yep. I love that. I I always did, even if it's stock footage, which it never was. I always thought that was interesting, that little things like that could have been stock footage. I always comment on Shazam. Michael Gray would go in and do the Elders fleet and strong and wise. And I always thought, why don't they just have him sitting in the thing, shoot it once, and then cut it in anytime? But no, they would always shoot an original him doing the chant for the Elders.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of surprising when you think of how cost-cutting these shows tended to be. You would think that anything that we can use more than once, just do it once and we'll rerun it. So,
right.
Yeah, it's nice though to see that if it's a little different every time, that does add a little bit of a quality to it.
Yeah, I agree. And once again, big mistake. Sorcerer contacts the two of them, calling them the Kilowatt Cuties.
He has so many fantastic nicknames for Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
through the whole episode. I like that Dyna Girl comments on a space-time disturbance. Dyna Girl describes as Electra confusing.
He challenges them to find out how he stole the Bernini clock and to stop him from taking the crown jewels, which are also in the Municipal Records building. The crown jewels are just sitting on display in the Municipal Records building.
And what fabulous looking crown jewels they are.
I know.
Such a display. It's a crown and a scepter and some kind of other little gold thing, but it was just this one little tiny display. It reminded me of this is like what King Friday in the neighborhood of Make Believe might have on display.
Yes.
Yeah, this was like puppet level crown jewels.
Yeah. And not a guard, at least close to that. Not even a guard close.
Yeah. Once again, anybody in town is welcome to just grab the stuff and walk right out the door.
Right. Oh man. So, Frank then tells the two that he's got a new device. Here we once again, the Electro-G, which is a device that can change the gravitic density of any object, make it lighter or make it heavier.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Yep. And as we'll see, just like, in every other episode, anytime Frank gives them a device, it does play a part in the story later on.
Gosh, Sorcerer, how'd you ever get to steal this clock?
Merlin's mirror, can't you see?
Yeah, my lipstick's on a little crooked. But how'd you steal the clock?
Myth! Dazzle! This mirror is my key to possessing all the great art treasures of the world.
Gosh, Sorcerer, that's real good, huh? All the art treasures in the whole wide world.
They're worth more millions than you can count. But then again, that's not saying much, is it?
But he can spirit himself anywhere. He's shown that before. So what big deal is the... I mean, again, later on, we're going to add that little twist. It's almost like the writers were writing this and somebody pointed out, hey, maybe you should add something to it because the dude could teleport himself.
Yep.
I don't know. They get there, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, in time to see the jewels disappear. And I did love this. Electra Woman scans the room. I don't know. I always loved it whenever they would hold up the thing and point it at something or what have you. I always thought that was cool for some reason as a kid.
Oh yeah, then you get the superimposed video effect coming out of it. In this case, it was like wavy purple rings as she scans the room. And yeah, it looks cheap, it looks silly, but it's also cool. It's fun. That's what they could do for Saturday morning TV back then.
Yep. And she finds no trace of the Sorcerer, though, which I thought was interesting. But you talk about the cheap effect. You say it's cheap, but still cool. I do admit I love the effect of the Sorcerer, and then later on we'll also see with Electra Woman and Dyna Girl of them going through the mirror. The way it's angled and the way it's shot, it still works and is effective today.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of simple. It's like stage magician kind of stuff.
Right.
The audience viewing what you're doing from just the right angle, and yeah, you can step into the mirror.
Yep. And this is where we now are coming up to the commercial for part 1 because the Sorcerer leaves a note behind for the two.
Listen to this, Dyna Girl. Dear Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, don't you think a fantastic trick like making the crown jewels disappear before your very eyes deserves a big hand?
He's just patting himself on the back again.
He's underlined the word big hand. Big hand. Now, what do you suppose?
This is so crazy. Just what a bizarre visual to just... Giant hands are hovering in the room, loudly clapping. I love that they even thought of this.
I was actually surprised, though, but see, because I have questions about this whole thing. I was surprised. If you've got giant hands clapping, you would think there would also be maybe some wind that would like blow their hair a little bit as it's clapping and such. But no, we don't see that. Okay, that's fine. Because Frank reports that the hands are an illusion. And all they have to do is not believe in it. But then Frank follows it up by going, there's got to be a film projector somewhere projecting the hands. Well, which is it? Is it an illusion that you just disbelieve? Or is it technological? And this is again where it's like Electra Woman skirts with the whole thing of magic and science and magic. Which is it? Is it just a cheap parlor trick, or is it really something, mystical that's threatening the two of them that their electrocomps may not be able to counter?
Yeah, they get a little slippery in trying to describe what was actually going on in some cases. Yeah, that's a good point, to be just don't believe in it. Well, if it's being projected out of a projector, it doesn't matter if I believe in it or not. It's still going to be there.
Right, exactly. So we get another scan of the room by Electra Woman, and she finds the projector in a suit of armor that apparently all you need to do is shut the visor because it's in the head. And the whole thing stops. The noise even stops because I'm thinking it's a projector. Okay, you don't see the image anymore, but the sound would still be coming out. And what sound that film projector is making?
Yeah, that's some freaky sound effects in this whole episode.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, if Scooby-Doo taught me nothing, it's that if there's a suit of armor in the room, there's something going on with that suit of armor.
Yeah. Yeah.
This also kind of reminded me of Mysterio from the last Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
And having like projectors and illusions to commit your crimes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And those illusions continue because they manage, thanks to the signal he's sending out, they track him to this empty park. But Dyna Girl scans the area and with the use of Crime Scope is able to find out that light is bouncing off his house, which is actually right there in the park, so that no one can see it. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty impressive because it's a park, they keep saying. They don't say it's an abandoned lot or something, an empty lot. They say a park. And there's a house in the middle of the park. Yep. You got nothing on that one, right? It's like,
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I mean, bending light and okay.
But this also goes to what we said in the last episode. This is a tech-heavy show in its own way, technobabble. It likes throwing out words, including how they use direct-to-scan to find their way to the house. Right. So they get into the house, they meet up with the sorcerer, confront him.
Welcome. I thought it would take you much longer to make your entrance. I'm afraid I underestimated you.
And I'm afraid we're going to have to ring down the curtain on your magic act.
Just a moment. My transistorized toilers for justice. If you will allow me, I will do what no other magician has ever done before. Explain my fantastic tricks.
Gosh, Sorcerer, really? Yes, Sorcerer. Really?
Really? Keep your eye on Merlin's mirror. Pardon me while I disappear.
Hey, you left me behind. I don't even know one magic trick of my own.
Yeah, she did have to spend a lot of time just hanging around when she got to slip into the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
And so Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, however, they hop right in after him.
They hop in after him despite Frank's warnings because another disturbance has occurred in the time-space continuum thanks to his passing through the window. Maybe that was our clue. Because he does say time-space continuum. Maybe that was our clue there that we should have realized that the mirror was more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
These criminals are very fond of tossing out hints.
Well, no, it's funny because sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. But maybe like I said, because I'm sitting there going with the whole thing with the mirror going, I don't get it. It's like he could do all this. But it's like, but Frank twice has mentioned disturbances in time and space, not just space. So it's like,
right.
Okay. And they do, as you say, they pass through the mirror and they enter this very weirdly lit landscape of what I thought at first was debris. But it's like, no, they're actually just like these metallic structures and these ghostly images floating around.
This looked so bizarre.
Yeah.
And so cool. And you said weird, and Dyna Girl actually says electro-weird.
Yes.
as they walk in. And she also says, now I know how Alice through the looking glass felt.
Yes. Yep.
But what a scene. It's that nonstop, like, weird howling noises are going, flashing lights everywhere. There's those kind of like pink structures, like kind of sail-shaped.
Yes,
absolutely bizarre. I really like the way that looked. They really, I think they did a great job creating a bizarre visual for the mirror dimension.
Yep. And the electrocomms do not work in the dimension as well.
What's happening? What do you mean they no longer exist?
That's very Doctor Who-y.
I mean, Frank is freaked out enough all the time anyway. He warned them not to go into the mirror. They said, Frank, we've got to do it.
And so the sorcerer once again is free to carry on his diabolical crimes. while Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl remain trapped in the strange warped dimension behind the fantastic mirror, doomed to remain in a world which CrimeScope indicates does not exist. Will our superheroines escape? Tune in next week.
Sunshine Saturday, come fly with me. I can be any kid on the block. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
They're slugging it out. A left to the jaw, and...
Oh, my block is knocked off.
But you can press it right back on. It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Press this lever. He throws a right, the other a left. Knock his block off. You're the winner.
Wait till next time.
You can Rock'em Sock'em with the Rock'em Sock'em Robots by Marx.
And now, Miss Dazzle, full steam ahead.
Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl go back in time to capture the Sorcerer.
Let's play fireman with Play-Doh Pumper number 9.
Put in the Play-Doh, there it goes. Now pump out the Play-Doh hose.
Make the fireman's hats and the fire plug. Now hook up the hose.
Up the ladder, there he goes. Now pump out more Play-Doh hose. Playing fireman's lots of fun. You can make it with Play-Doh.
Play-Doh Pumper number 9. New from Kenner.
Sunshine Saturday,
The Sorcerer has returned, causing Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl some problems.
Picture.
Quick, after him. That may be the way out of here.
Armed with Merlin's magic mirror, he leads them into another dimension. Stay tuned.
I thought this was weird too. It opens with the two of them dodging objects for no apparent reason. And they never pick up on this again, what those objects were. They just, all of a sudden, just things are thrown at Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl, I guess, by crew members off stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Some poor production assistant who had been, taking orders from Deirdre Hall all day, and now he gets his revenge.
Oh, man. Now, and then this is finally where we see why the mirror is so important. It takes part 2. You have to wait a whole week to learn it's a time device, as the Sorcerer plans to travel back to 1502, leaving Ms. Dazzle behind once again. And again, this is where I say, she doesn't get a lot to do, but when she speaks...
I wonder, if he gets to his appointment early, is he really late? Or if he gets to his appointment late, is he really early? Or if he just gets...
And I thought that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, Miss Dazzle doesn't come across as a deep thinker, but she could get rather philosophical.
Yes.
At times.
Right. Now, he goes back to 1502, where he meets Leonardo da Vinci, who is finishing up his work on the Mona Lisa.
This is just getting so silly. But yeah, there's Da Vinci with the giant puffy hat, just putting the finishing touches. What perfect timing. I mean, the painting looks completely finished.
Well, see, now there's the question, because, and of course, this is because I watch Doctor Who, I watch a lot of time travel stuff. Frank gets news in the present that the Mona Lisa has disappeared from the Louvre. Okay, first question, why doesn't he just straight go to the Louvre and steal it? Maybe he wants it because it's brand new and fresh, and it'll look, if he goes back to the present, he's like, it's not only just aged, it's like brand new. You can still smell the paint or something. Who knows? But then I think to myself, why would Frank even get a notification that it was taken from the Louvre? Because it never got the chance to go through time.
Yeah, this is one of those things. If it's a time travel story, you better shut your brain off.
Yes.
You're going to have questions. Because obviously, if somebody snatches away the Mona Lisa the second it's done being painted, it never would have been in the museum.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Now,
we're off on a whole alternate timeline at this point.
Right, exactly. Right. And here, again, this is the two then, Electra-Woman and Dyna Girl, They arrive. They manage somehow to find their way through the dimension into 1502, but they arrive too late as the sorcerer disappears with the Mona Lisa. They also discover that their electrocomps still don't work when they try to get him. But in the present, Frank manages with CrimeScope to transcend time and communicate with the two.
That was impressive.
Yes.
I liked how he was like, Frank said, now if I can just remember when the Mona Lisa was painted. Then he kind of leans over, hits a couple of buttons, looks at a printout, and says, oh, painted in 1502. Got it.
Got it. Oh, man. You know, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, like, we got to go after the sorcerer, so they disappear.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the final just goofy expression on Da Vinci's face as they take off. He gets a nice little final goofy mug for the camera.
Right.
Da Vinci was played by Billy Beck, who I looked up, and he died in 2011 at the age of 91.
Wow.
And a character actor and a familiar face. He's one of those, I know I've seen this guy before when you see his face. Just scrolling through his credits on IMDb, there weren't any particular credits that popped out at me, but there's just a lot of them. This was a guy that just popped up in a million things for a long time. And he's one of those old man character actors, because when you look at his credits in IMDb, half the time he's playing a character that's just called Old Man.
Hey, you know, like we said with Sid Haig before, if it works, you stick with it.
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of guys like that's the role they played for years and years. I always think of like in the 60s, it was Burt Mustin.
Yes.
Who was Gus the Fireman on Leave It to Beaver. He was the old man in every show.
Yes. Yep.
And he was great. This was another one of those old man character actors. Billy Beck.
Yep. So we get back to the present. We see Miss Dazzle. She's tired of waiting around, so she enters the mirror and finds the sorcerer, as also Electra Woman and Dyna Girl arrive.
Gosh, I never knew it is luck on the other side of a mirror before.
Miss Dazzle, stage left. Left, Miss Dazzle, left. I've got the Mona Lisa.
You have the Mona Lisa, sorcerer. That is, if we can get enough power.
I told you your electrocomps are no good.
What was that about our electrocomps, you magical misfit?
Quickly, Miss Dazzle, into the mirror.
After them. This may be our last chance.
Hurry, sorcerer! Do something before they get out of that thing!
Don't worry your empty little head, Miss Dazzle. This has all been just a rehearsal for the finale. Care to go for a little spin, my vaulted vixens?
What he basically does is he starts spinning the mirror.
Well, our superheroines have foiled the sorcerer's theft of the Mona Lisa. But will they be trapped in the fantastic time dimension forever?
It's the same spinning mirror that Karen Allen whacks Harrison Ford in the face with when they're on the submarine in Raiders.
Okay, there you go. So there's your
goofy spinning mirrors.
Yes. So there's your visual there for you, folks.
Yes. But I love the shot of the mirror. There's a shot. It's like a continuous shot of the sorcerer outside the mirror, and then they go in to Electra Woman and Dyna Girl inside the mirror. And I thought that was very impressive. Like that, for all the joking around we do about how a lot of the visual effects are not great in these episodes, that one really worked.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Like I said, everything with the mirror worked. It still holds up to this day. You know, it was pretty impressive. Frank is trying to contact them. Electra Woman wants more power so she can scan for the mirror so they can find their way back. The sorcerer, though, plans to shatter the mirror and trap them in there forever, even if it means losing his ability to travel through time. So Electra Woman, though, meanwhile, inside the dimension, starts using her Electra Beam, which increases the storm's intensity. Like, this is where, again, I'm like, huh? What are you doing? It increases the storm's intensity. And then we cut back and we see that he's actually done it. He's broken the mirror. so they're trapped forever. Right? Right?
Yep.
Oh my God.
In fact, Dyna Girl even says, things sure look Electra grim for us.
Yes. But we still have Frank, who's managed to so far send power through time, communications through time. So he works with Crime Scope on basically trying to create a tear in the space-time continuum for them to come through.
This is terrifying. It's like Crime Scope will try to rip a hole through the wall of space-time dimension.
Yes.
And they even acknowledge it's dangerous and that the time dimension might disappear.
Yes.
Well, okay. To which Electra Woman responds,
Let her rip, Frank.
All right. Here goes. Come on, Crime Scope. Come on. Come on, Crime Scope. You've got 3 seconds to brace yourselves. Good luck.
And do they ever? Because it makes like a rending sound of metal going. I will say I did like that they got creative with the rip. It's kind of like this metallic looking tooth.
Hi, Frank. Oh, we were in the neighborhood and thought we'd just drop in.
yeah, they kind of step over a jagged hole in the dimension to just kind of climb back into the base.
Yes. So because of that, they're now free. They head back to the Sorcerer's hideout. And of course, that's the only thing with this is that we always have to have the quick wrap up with the final confrontation because we've only got a few minutes left. We've spent all this time in another dimension and getting him out through the tear in the space-time wall and all this. So now we got to do this fast. They incapacitate the Sorcerer with the Electra G beam, sending him through the floor.
They finally got around to using that Electra G beam at the very end. And yeah, what a silly thing to do to your villain at the end of the show.
Yep.
Crashes through the floor.
Uh-huh. I did like, though, Ms. Dazzle gets the last word.
I told him that meant 7 years bad luck.
Yes, I like Ms. Dazzle having the little... These episodes generally end with a little humorous note at the end, and it's usually the heroes back at the base. But in this episode, this case, it was fun for Ms. Dazzle to get the final line.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. So let me ask you this. Anything else you want to touch on here we didn't talk about in the episode?
The only thing I wanted to do was I'm such a fan of the nicknames that the Sorcerer had for Electra Woman and Dyna Girl through the whole episode. And we mentioned the first one already, which was Kilowatt Cuties. But I think I jotted down all of them. So here they are. Kilowatt Cuties, Wired Weirdos, My Transistorized Toilers for Justice, The Kilowatt Couple, My Volted Vixens, and finally, Those Diode Dollies.
I think he's the only one that does that in the show so far.
Those are fantastic. This guy is operating on a level like Jonathan Harris back on Lost in Space.
Yes.
With all his names for the robot. That's how the Sorcerer approaches Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I gotta add, I also liked when Frank is working away on the computer there on Crime Scope trying to get the equation for the time-space tear. I did like all the panning shots of the panels of the computers. I'm thinking like anybody who ever wants to recreate Electra-Base, there's your blueprints right there in that episode. Just sure. Screen grab them and go to work.
Oh, I would. Now suddenly I really want my studio I'm in right now to be completely redone to look exactly like the Electra-Base.
Well, you know something? Like, if Dragon Con ever gets Judy Strangis to show up as Dyna Girl, there should be, like, some effort to create in one of the small rooms or something, an Electra-Base, and even have someone cosplay as Frank as she walks in and show her, here's Electra-Base.
Yeah, that'll probably be me. Gotta go order the sweater right now.
Get that sweater.
Get my Frank costume assembled. Great idea.
There you go. Just walking around, everybody's looking at you, go, who are you? It's like, you don't know Frank Heflin?
You recognize a guy in a drab brown sweater? Clearly I'm Frank from Electra-Woman.
Perhaps you need to see me surrounded by my Electra-Base.
Yes.
Oh, man. Yeah. No, despite the questioning, and this one, the writing did leave you a little like more so going, what? You had to, like you said, though, you had to turn it off and not worry, especially about the space-time questions, just roll, because it's still fun. Constantine as the sorcerer, having a great time. Miss Dazzle there with the dialogue she gets. And yeah, just the whole idea of the two of them trapped in another dimension and trapped there for a while. I mean, they it's not like they created this set and did it quick. It's fully realized and utilized through a good part of the story. So, thumbs up.
Great.
Yeah.
The mirror dimension looked great. It looked cool, and they used a lot of it. And I love that even Miss Dazzle got to. I love that scene where she's just, why does everybody else get to go into the mirror dimension? And she just hops in along with everybody else. The mirror dimension looked excellent. And you can't really, I don't want to hold the time travel paradox stuff against this episode, because time travel never makes any sense. It's always, no matter what story you're talking about, if you think too hard, it's going to fall apart.
True.
I mean, Avengers Endgame was a very high level produced movie, but it falls apart if you think about the time travel. Time travel is always ridiculous, and it's a little more obvious in this case because we're just dealing with Da Vinci and the Mona Lisa.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. If you were Electra Girl and you were summing up this episode with an Electra exclamation, what would you say?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I'm such a fan of the work of Miss Dazzle in this episode, and I'm wondering now if I'm repeating myself, because I don't remember how I answered this question the first time we did a Sorcerer episode. But in honor of Miss Dazzle, I'm going to say this was Electra Dazzling.
Wow. Now, you took my Electra. That's what I was going to...
Mine also, because I feel like there's a good chance that's what I said last time.
Because honest to God, like I said, she doesn't have a lot to do, but when she's on, she's pretty funny, and I liked her in this. And I was appreciative of the fact that they brought her back.
Mm-hmm. I kind of want to see that Three's Company pilot where she's Chrissy.
I'm sure that's got to be somewhere on YouTube.
Yeah, gotta look that up.
Yeah. All right, then. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode here of the Batcave Podcast. Before we do, Kevin, Flopcast. How are things going on the old Flopcast there with you and Cornflake?
Things are rolling along on the Flopcast. The Flopcast is my regular podcast. We do it every single week, and it's a very silly, very geeky, nerdy, goofy show which we dwell on a lot of 70s and 80s pop culture and nostalgia, so things just like Electra-Woman. So please check that out. We're having fun over there. We are on the ESO network, and we are at flopcast.net. Also, I think the last time we mentioned the Flopcast, we talked about how we're doing the Backs of Life on the Flopcast.
Right.
Over the course of the year, we've been examining backdoor pilot episodes of The Facts of Life. And I forgot to mention, there is an Electra-Woman connection that I wanted to plug. And that is that Mindy Cohn, who of course played Natalie on The Facts of Life, she has a podcast. She started a podcast last year.
Oh.
It's called Mondays with Mindy. And it's a nice little show. It's just her and her co-host, and they have a guest on, and it's usually some creative or show business friend of Mindy's, because she knows everybody. She's worked with everybody over the years. So she's had the other Facts of Life girls have all been guests on the show, and people like Melissa Gilbert and Justine Bateman. So a lot of fun people from old TV like that. Patton Oswalt just did one recently. But a couple months back, Mindy's guest on Mondays with Mindy was Deirdre Hall.
Ooh.
And yeah, I don't think you hear a lot of interviews with Deirdre Hall, but they're friends. Mindy and Deirdre are friends, evidently. So Deirdre did Mondays with Mindy, and they kind of talk all through Deirdre's career. And it's of interest for Electra Woman fans because, of course, Deirdre, I think it's pretty well known that she's not really into this show. And, she doesn't really do a lot of talking about Electra Woman. And in the course of this podcast, Mindy brought it up. And Mindy said she loved Electra Woman when she was a little girl in the mid-'70s. She watched Electra Woman and Dyna Girl and, brought that right up to Deirdre on the show. And Deirdre changed the subject pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, she kind of acknowledged that, there was that, and then just kind of moved along. So, if you want to hear Electra Woman and Dyna Girl podcast talk, you got to come here to the Batcave.
That's such a shame. I mean, I respect her wanting to do it, I guess. I just think, when you think about like Lindsay Wagner, who's had a long career as well, still always embraces Bionic Woman because she knows what it meant to a lot of young women to see her as an empowered woman. Linda Carter. Yeah,
Deirdre's still working.
Yeah.
She's out there.
Yeah.
But she's just doesn't want to talk about Electra Woman, evidently. Which, again, which is her right. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just for fans like us. Yeah, it's too bad she isn't more into it. But it's also, she can take that stance if she chooses.
Sure. No. And for fans like us, I mean, in the end, we just enthusiastically. But there's Mindy Cohen saying, I loved it growing up, a young girl, watching it.
Yeah.
To me, it's like there's an opportunity to say, all right, maybe I'll say a few words about it and stuff and do that. Like, to me, that's the shame, is like when you turn your back totally on it, when it means something and had an influence on certain young women. That's a shame. That's the only thing I would just say. It's a shame you couldn't speak to it a little and just say a few words and stuff and then go, okay, now let's move on and let's talk about, what was it with Wilfred Brimley, Our House?
Yes.
Which I loved. Which I loved.
Me too. Absolutely. Still a fun interview, though, so I would recommend for Electra Woman fans, it might be off your radar. You might have easily missed that, but just look up Mondays with Mindy.
Okay. I'll find it myself and put links as well in the show notes so people have access to that. Fantastic. Well, okay then, Kevin, that's going to do it then for this episode. Next time we get together, we're going to talk about a new villain this time, the Pharaoh, which I'm really looking forward to. I can't remember his name now. Very prolific. Another one of these actors that we're going to see in a lot of television in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He appeared in one of the more, I wouldn't say popular, but well-known Star Trek The Next Generation episodes. I wouldn't say popular. It wasn't a very but it's well-known because it sort of was, in a way, sort of setting the stage for the Romulans in Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was one of three people who were frozen back in the 20th century and came back and woke up in the 3rd century there with Picard and them. And I just love his performance overall as an actor. Peter Markridge, okay. God. And he just passed away this year. So stay tuned for that, folks, and stay tuned for all the great stuff we've got coming along here on the Batcave Podcast by heading on over either to your great podcast catchers like Apple Podcasts and Stitcher Radio and such, or you can head on over to our Batcave Podcast page at thebatcavepodcast.com, our website there, where we've got everything from the very beginning with Hey Diddle Riddle to currently our current episodes looking at everything from the 1970s and beyond, dealing with Batman 66. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Kevin, thank you so very much.
Always a pleasure, John. Anytime I can stop by the Batcave and talk Electra Woman, happy to be here.
Okay, then, and we'll do that. We'll make sure we do this a lot sooner than a year.
Sounds good.
Yes. So until then, folks, take care. Have yourselves a great day. So long.
Next week, the super pair face the Pharaoh. This dastardly villain plans to take over the world by procuring the greatest energy force on Earth. Tune in next week.